In church, the saying that God is unconditional love, an unconditional lover, that life and the universe itself is all about love, that life is a gift, a grace from God. Seems sort of commonplace. We've heard them all 1,000 times. Almost like a greeting card sentiment, something that you like to look at on the fridge, but seems something hard to live your life by. Too good to be true, maybe even a pipe dream. Because the idea is hard to honestly imagine and often doesn't seem to square with our lived reality, our experience. I mean, how many times in our life have we had a spiritual experience, whether it be in a church, or in a hospital room, or around a birthday cake, or walking in the woods, and we find ourselves just sliding into this idea that it really is all a gift. Unconditional love. And then out of nowhere, someone slaps us in the face. Or we find ourselves slapping someone else in the face. Or we get in our car and we turn on the radio and hear about another massacre somewhere in the world. Or there's some depressing news that turns out to be actually something we voted for, or something that we're not doing anything about. And we snap out of it. But my message to you tonight is that in spite of those things, this idea of God's unconditional love is actually lived reality. And the quest of faith is to open our eyes that we might see it, because most of us have our eyes and our hearts skewed by our life, by those slaps in the faces. And faith, and being the church, and listening to Jesus are about trying to get our eyes and our hearts cleared. And I say all these things without any judgment on myself, on any of you. Because the truth of the matter is that when you read the Gospels, people did not believe it then either, when he was telling them. And that seems hard to believe. You would think that a holy person like Jesus, a Christ like Jesus, a God's Son like Jesus, a miracle worker like Jesus would be a convincing proof of God's love, that people in the stories in the Bible would just jump up and say, yes, it's true. Because the evidence of God's love would have been right before their very eyes and they couldn't miss it. But we know from the stories that they didn't. That many walked away. Just like we sometimes do. And they did it because it's so hard to wrap our minds around this. It's hard to open our imaginations wide enough. We have just too many other things going on in our thoughts and in our lives. Too many slaps to the faces and punch to the guts to grab that one precious pearl, as Jesus called it. And that's why Jesus told them, and through the Gospels tells us stories. To get our imaginations working, to get us to change how we look at things, to open our hearts in a new way, to get a new view on how our lives really are, so that we might see the truth and it might set us free. something else Jesus said. And so I'd like to share one of Jesus' stories with you, but I'm translating it into modern American. You would know it as the parable of the rich landowner. So imagine this. It's the height of the financial crisis of 2009 and 2010 in California. A million people have lost their jobs. They didn't even lose their jobs, their companies are gone. And with those losses go their homes and their cars, their retirements and their pensions, everything they'd been working for. And then there were the hundreds of thousands of college graduates across the Bay in Berkeley or at Stanford or down in UCLA who'd invested years of their time and tens of thousands of dollars of their parents' money, who had to move home and try to get a job at Burger King. It was a total catastrophe for many of us. Do you remember? But people still have to eat. So there was this rich farmer in the Central Valley who put out an advertisement looking for day laborers in the fields, paying good wages, cash. And the next Monday, he drives into the town square in Modesto, and he picks up truckloads of illegal Mexican farm workers at 4 a.m. And off they go to the fields. And he sets them to work. But he looks out and there's more. So he goes back. And by 8 o'clock, the former brokers and techies are starting to show up. And there's more Mexican farm laborers there. And he picks them up. And he takes them to the field. And off they go. But there's more. So he returns again at noon. And takes another truckload of people off to the fields. And he comes back every 4 hours and picks up these people. Day laborers, wanted, cash paid, good wages. And it's a mixed bag. It's migrant pickers who go up and down the Central Valley, and it's people from the Bay Area come over to try to make some money. Finally, at around 6, he circles back through downtown Modesto, and there's just a few bums hanging around, sitting on the benches. And he rolls down the window. He said, "Do you want to make some good money?" Nah. The soup kitchen opens in an hour. And we've got a place at the shelter around the corner at the Baptist church. We're good. We're all set. But if you work for me, you'll make enough to be able to eat out for a week and stay in a hotel maybe for a couple nights and get a bath. And so finally they say yes, and they jump in the back, another full load, and out to the fields they go. But it's only 2 hours because night's falling. And so when the picking's done for the day and everything's covered, all the pickers come in to settle up. And the farmer first starts with the 2-hour guys, the guys who didn't even want to work in the first place. $160 cash in their hand. And they're like, wow, this is great. And then next come the 4 p.m. guys, $160 cash. Wow, this is great. Then come the noontime guys, and I'm like, $160? Same as him? But yeah, otherwise they wouldn't have had any money. Great. And so each group is getting progressively less pleased until he comes to the people who've been in the fields for 16 hours, since 4 a.m. And he hands them their $160 cash. One of them looks down and erupts and says, "What is this? I slaved all day for you in the hot sun. And you pay those lazy bums who hardly broke a sweat the same as me? To which the farmer says, I gave you what I promised you, a day's wages. What is it to you what I give to other people? It's my money. That I gave you work for this day and an opportunity to have your life was my gift to you. That I paid those guys a day's wages was my gift to them. And Jesus says, this is what the kingdom of God is like. It's all a gift. And it's not based on what we do, or what we deserve, or how hard we work. It's a gift of love. You see, God is not about knowing everything. God is not about seeing everything. God is not planning everything. God doesn't choose some people over others, rewarding some and punishing others. God is about loving everyone. And in our meditation, which we're soon to do together, you can see for yourself. When you breathe, a gift of a breath. But there's a pause at the bottom. And then the breath comes out. And there's a pause at the top. Will there be another breath? What is my body going to do with that breath if I have it? And those of you who've been with someone when they're passing away, it is just like that. Suddenly there is not another breath. And they were gifts. Or your pulse. It beats, and then there's a pause. Hundreds and thousands of times every day. But one time will be the last time. The truth, my friends, is that scoundrels and degenerates and lazy people get the same gift as upstanding, hardworking, righteous people. And when we can truly believe this, and by believe it, not think of it as an idea, but live it as our reality, that it's a gift to be enjoyed. And stop looking at others, wondering why they have what they have and we have more or less. And just cherish the gift of that breath, the gift of that pulse, the gift of that light through the window, the gift of a little boy, people beside us in the pews, food on our table. And just start loving as we have been loved and giving as we have received. Then we understand what Jesus means. Amen.